So welcome to the Uptick podcast. Today we've got Pete Martin from Nimbus and Jason Hill from Tio. You guys want to give us a little introduction and a bit about your background?
Yeah. Go for it. Do ladies first?
Ladies first.
So, Pete Martin from Nimbus, UK business manager. Been in the company for about 6 years now. And prior to that, sort of in totality, I've been in the industry for about 15, going on 16 years. So, started as an engineer, worked my way through sort of maintenance, installation, commissioning, through to design, ended up in sales, and then strangely and unpredictably software, and sort of really found my roots in software. And I think this is kind of my direction moving forwards, I think. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, me and Pete go way back, so we've worked together at numerous companies, Antideck of the industry, aren't we, they call us. But yeah, I think this May or June, it'd be 20 years in the industry. So yeah, I started when I was like 10. So looking good. But yeah, originally started out as a service engineer, technician. So doing fire extinguishers, worked my way through fire alarm systems, commissioning. Then ended up working for a reseller, so a wholesaler, selling fire alarm equipment, commissioning it. Worked for Honeywell, Eaton, a few other companies. And then exactly the same time we worked at Eaton together. Been with Tio 5.5 years now. Obviously look after the sales and marketing team, so head of sales for UK and Ireland. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much the journey.
What's really interesting though? When I got into software, and I think you got into software around the same time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of sort of like industry peers that we spoke to, at least I did anyways, like consultants, like, I'm thinking about going to Nimbus. What do you think? What do you know about it? And it's like, software, mate. You're going to leave the industry essentially. You'll have nothing to do with it anymore.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, dark art, don't go. And it didn't put me off, fortunately. But I thought I was really going to sort of, go in a different path, and actually it's pulled me in even closer to the industry.
And here we are doing a podcast.
And here we are doing
digital
a podcast.
adoption
on software, crazy. Crazy.
So
exactly the same thing
interesting,
for me,
isn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah. So we've clearly got obviously like years of experience between us, obviously in fire safety and in some aspects obviously security as well. But how would you say like you've seen fire safety as a whole in terms of like digital adoption and technology evolve like since you started in the industry yourself?
Massive change. So when I first started in the industry, it was 2005 or 6. There wasn't even smartphones.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even have it's crazy. Remember my first day, like we had to plan the route on a map.
Yeah.
And I was going to, I think, deliver some extinguishers at Cambridge Strawberry Festival or something. So we didn't have any of that.
It's a good festival, that is.
Great festival. I actually reversed my van into a parked caravan. That was so funny. So like someone was backing my van in to deliver these extinguishers, and I hit this van, this caravan, and they come out. I was like, bloody hell. But yeah, it's changed massively. And we used to do everything on spreadsheets.
Yeah.
So like we had a pen and a bit of paper. When we did a service visit, we would write down on a pen and a bit of paper. This is back in 2005, 2006. List of all the assets, mainly extinguishers back then, because you got paid for each extinguisher, so they wanted an accurate list. And then we'd give that to the office. Office would then add that onto the system. I can't remember what system they were using at the time, but it was obviously really archaic. And then we'd get that back the next time round, but there's always be mistakes on there. Sometimes the paper would get lost. You'd spend like all day creating an asset register, and then they give it to the office, they'd lose it.
Yeah.
So it's changed massively from what it was.
We used to have T cards. So
We was on about this yesterday.
So it's
What's
like,
a T
it's like
card?
a metal sort of like racking or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like these cards that look like the shape of a T, and you pull it out because at the top it sort of had the job name of the customer name.
Right.
Yeah. So you pull it out and it'd have like the details of where you needed to go and so on. And that was how you did it.
That's how you did it, yeah.
We was literally on about that yesterday,
Yeah.
but more so on like process management, T-card system. It's like inquiry. It's now sales quoted. It's now like approved and moves through all these different stages. But carbon copy paper sheet.
Oh
carbon
god,
copy.
yeah, Jesus, So we used to get at the start of the month. We used to get
fades as well over the years.
Oh yeah,
So
terrible.
like you're looking at a certificate from 2 years ago and you can't even read it.
It's gone. It's gone. I've got a good story on that, by the way. So hold that story where that saved me the carbon copy. I was going to say, so start of the month we would get like a massive wad of paperwork, and that would be your jobs for the month basically.
Yeah.
And we'd have to like look through it. We'd have to like organise our own routes. So it'd be like, okay, I've got a job up in Lincoln. I've got 2 there. You'd have to call each customer and try and book it in.
Oh, yeah.
And that was just a nightmare, just to try and handle it geographically. Like it'd take a couple of days just to sort it all out and plan it.
Yeah.
And then you obviously go service the system, like exactly what you said,
If
Carl.
you got onto site.
If you got onto site, if you knew where anything was as well. Like sometimes you'd book 2 or 3 jobs in, you'd get to the job, there was no asset register, wouldn't have a clue how big it was. You think, oh
Yeah.
God, I'm never going to get this done in time to get to the next customer. So it was a nightmare to manage. And then, like you said, carbon copy certificates, paper logbooks. There was nothing to connect any panels to, like Nimbus.
Well, it's
It was
the asset registers. Like, I remember I used to do, can I name places I used to service on this? I don't know if I can name sites.
Yeah.
I used to service Forest School in London. And every year I'd write out, as I was servicing fire extinguishers, like, CO2 in such and such cupboard or whatever it is, and I'd find another one, and I'd write it out on this old, spreadsheet and whatnot, and you'd keep all the details. And then come the next year, it was lost.
Yeah.
You'd have to start again,
Start
and
all over
again, and again, and again. And it was just like, that was so time consuming. For me, I remember that, like, Forest School in particular being like a summer job. Because there was a couple of hundred extinguishers there, but the time it took you to get around it all and find it all, and of course they get picked up, don't they? And then they get put somewhere else.
Open doors open, hidden in cupboards.
It was insane. Like, the amount of time that you'd spend with these kind of antiquated solutions, it was insane. Yeah,
But it's strange, like, because I mean, we're talking 2005, 2006, like in your case there. I mean,
a little bit later for me, but
but we're still seeing.
Really good point. I was going to say, like, I'm
now.
talking 2005. I've spoke with some companies, and they're not even doing spreadsheets.
Yeah.
They're doing nothing.
Yeah,
you
pen
know,
and
and
paper.
that's really worrying from a couple of standpoints. Compliance-wise, like, it's sod's law, isn't it? The one detector you test is the one that isn't working.
Yeah.
But also, it's like,
well, it's got a cap over it.
yeah, cap. That's a great example. Yeah, cap
the
over
commissioning
it.
cap.
But also, like, trying to find any way around the site, like, it's just a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies aren't doing an asset register whatsoever. And there's a big risk of that. They're writing on the certificate 100% of assets tested, and it's like, well, where?
Yeah,
you
no
know,
proof
you know,
to-
if they, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I was running a fire alarm company and I had 10 engineers. I'd want to know that proof, just as a cover my backside,
Yeah.
because yes, you can't get in everywhere. There's certain rooms that are locked, but if you haven't got an asset list to start with, how can you even start that process? Like, you need it. But yeah, you bang on. Like, people are still running paper, spreadsheets, or nothing.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's so much tools available now. You know what I mean? Even a basic spreadsheet, it would do. But obviously, there's great solutions.
Well, you mentioned, like, around obviously the planning that you'd get an Excel, run through the Excel at the beginning of the month. Like, again, still meeting many people where they're sending an Excel sheet to the engineers. The engineers are almost like trying to fill the gap from that Excel sheet, and it's like the times have moved on. And, like, obviously on the back of, like, recent tragedies like Grenfell, for example, like, you mentioned not being able to sleep at night knowing that, like, you've not done your job right in particular. But obviously there seems to be, like, a huge shift in terms of, like, how much work is being applied towards the compliance at the moment, and also the competency side of things, something that
That's
we'll
a
talk
big
about
thing,
later.
yeah.
So, but specifically around, like, those sort of events, like, what would you say you've seen a big change of since then?
I think a lot of it is awareness now, and unfortunately in the industry it always takes tragic events to stimulate change. Rather than being proactive, it seems to be quite a reactive industry where when we're talking about life safety, that's actually quite kind of crazy, isn't it? But it's the way it is. And I think with technology, one of the things that we have to do is we have to shout from the rooftops about the available solutions that are on the market and get those early adopters, and then create momentum from those early adopters and get the word out there that there is better practices, and that hopefully then the rest of the industry will catch up. Because if you rely solely on the standards catching up and potentially, I don't like to refer to them as dinosaurs, but some of the dinosaurs who sort of instigate those changes, you'll never see anything happen.
Yeah.
And I think that we're now in a position where technology will actually drive changes much quicker than the standards will, and the standards won't be able to keep up with the amount of change that comes through, because as you've seen in technology, it's advancing so quickly, and we haven't even talked about AI yet.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah, the industry's got a lot of catching up to do, and I think the awareness that's unfortunately created from these tragic events like Grenfell and others, it kind of puts a little bit more onus onto compliance aware companies that they actually want to know what their engineers are testing.
Yeah.
Golden thread of information. We need to be able to trace it all back.
Yeah.
So
I don't know
it's a
what
good
your
thing.
experience is, Pete, but I tend to find a lot more end users now want the data.
Yeah.
So we, Tio, obviously our solution is for the end users, but we get much more end users now wanting asset lists and wanting, because they're concerned, right?
Yeah.
They're like, I've got this certificate and it says the engineer tested 100%, but I've got nothing to back that up. So what the end users are actually pushing is an asset management, and we've won a couple of contracts recently where they want an asset management system. They want to know what's been tested, where they want to know how many assets they've got, and that's been driven from the end user.
Yeah.
So nothing to do with the standards.
The end users are like, hold on, I'm paying these guys tens of thousands of pounds to service all of my sites up and down the country. Actually, it's not too much to ask, is it? Really? Like, who was on site? How long were they on site for? What assets did they test?
Yeah.
And where's the proof?
And it's been written in the tenders.
I was just about to say that.
It's being written in the tenders. So there's
now.
loads and loads of tenders coming out now, and we get fire and security companies coming, I've got this written in the tender. We've won the job, and it's all panic stations because we've won the job.
How are we doing it?
How do we resolve this now? And they're lucky because obviously there's loads of solutions out. There's solutions out there for that.
So and that's good because the end user's waking up to the fact that this data is available.
Yeah.
And that they can ask for that data. And if someone can't provide it, then they'll go and find someone that can. Correct.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the difference now. So it's big.
I think there's an element as well, like when you look at asset management as a wider piece, there's an element of this that like links back to the relationship between you and the customer, but also from a retention perspective, like companies should be looking at asset registers as a positive. Like if you hold all that information about a potential end user, it actually should make that relationship easier, but also should like make it harder for them to actually want to move. And I'm not saying that you would do it to,
of course,
to make it hard for people to leave, but ultimately like that's what we're seeing. And we've had a lot of companies of late where they've asked us to do like introductions and run throughs of different aspects of the system, but it all comes back to the asset management piece. And that's kind of like where I've seen the industry really take off lately.
Yeah. There's something to be said about like transparency as well, because I think one of the pushbacks from service and maintenance companies on asset registers is like, well, this is going to take me a lot of time, a lot of effort to actually go around the building and create it in the first place. But I think what they don't realise is once they've created it, they can then show value for money with that client. It's like, well, actually, we know how many assets you've got. We can show you when they need to be replaced. You can budget for the future. There's so much more transparency around it all, and it, like you say, it does improve that relationship with the client. It shouldn't be seen as a negative thing, as in like, extra bit of work. It should just be the standard.
We see it a lot, because with Nimbus, it's fixed in loads of locations. So we often know about changing of contracts before they come around, and we get a sort of glimpse into that world. And there's a lot of people that sort of inherit Nimbus on the site that they've taken over. And it comes to, what's this? What we've been told that we have to work with this. What does that mean? And how do we interact with it? And give us some training essentially. And they're just kind of, they're clueless to what's available and what they should be doing. But the end users are stipulating this now. They're like saying, we don't want to work with you unless you're willing to be transparent, unless you're willing to be, prove your compliance, and that's key. We did
a piece recently around the race to the bottom. It's something that unfortunately like I've seen in different businesses that I've been involved with in the past, where essentially it's an undercut industry, and I think a big piece of that, like that pushback and not wanting to do that extra work out on site, is because they've gone in that cheap that they actually can probably not afford to do so. And that's part of the issue, that people are just undercutting the value that they're offering, especially on the life safety side of things.
Well, you make another good point. So having an asset register can actually help your business in terms of revenue, because what you can do, a lot of contracts nowadays, one of the contracts I tendered for at my old company pre-Tio was a big retail chain. And they didn't have any asset registers. What they used to say is in the tender, it was like, right, we've got X amount of stores that are X amount of square meters. We've got this, that are this many, this, and you'd quote based on that.
Yep.
But what the company that I work for did, they created an asset register, and they were like, well, actually, this store, although we've quoted X, has got 50 more detectors, so we need to do an uplift. And the company were more than happy to pay it, because what happened was they could start to see, well, look, we've got these sites with this many assets, so we're actually getting a fair price. So it's being transparent,
data-driven.
Data-driven, exactly. And you can charge a fair price. And I think the other problem in the industry at the moment, there isn't enough engineers. And what tends to happen, you see, back in the day when I was servicing, I was a stickler. Like, I would want to test everything. I would never do 1, 2, miss a few 9900. I just wouldn't do it.
I did.
You're a naughty boy. But I think engineers now are under so much pressure, because tenders come in, they quote a cheap price, and now the engineer's pressured, well, you've got to test 4 sites today. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
you've got no asset data. And I think a lot of engineers think of, again, asset registers negatively. They're like, if I create one, people are going to be watching me, they're seeing what I'm doing. I would flip that on its head.
Yeah.
I would be like, well, I've got this asset register. There's 200 detectors on this site, so I can't do 4 jobs today.
Yeah.
I'm only going to do this job,
Yeah,
and
if
I'm
you want
going
me
to
to do my
do
job
it properly.
properly.
Exactly.
Yeah,
If you want me to do my job properly, okay, this is how many assets are on site. So we should pass that cost on to the client. And you tend to find when you've got that level of transparency, the client's more than happy to pay it.
Yeah.
You know.
And to your point, that sort of race to the bottom, what you see is there's a lot of sort of non-BAFE accredited type companies, perhaps electricians, and they go, I can work on these fire alarm systems. It's 24 volts. I'll quote to take over the maintenance of that thing, and they don't even, I'm not saying all electrical contractors. There's there's bad companies everywhere across all sort of industries, but people are quoting really, really low prices to take on the maintenance after they've done a low level install somewhere, and they're not servicing all of that fire alarm system. And then when a BAFE accredited company comes along and they charge the proper money, they don't stand a chance.
Yeah, bang. One of the trends you see, and especially in software, actually, is you used to have like seat-based pricing, user-based pricing. One of the trends that's happening is actually usage-based pricing.
Yeah.
So you pay per units, you get credits. So I guess anyone on the podcast, what I'd probably challenge them to do is try looking at your pricing, because if you can charge per extinguisher pricing, why don't you do the same on fire alarms?
Yeah.
Why charge, I don't know, £500 for a service visit when you have no idea how many assets there are there? Why not actually say, well, we know it takes 10 minutes to test a smoke detector. You've got X amount of detectors, so this is how much we're going to charge you. Yeah. It's so transparent and so clear. I don't know how a client would ever push back on that. And you probably end up making more money, more revenue, allowing sufficient time for the engineer to do a proper job. Yeah. And then there isn't a race to the bottom. So.
And I think that's where like the digital adoption comes in terms of like, not just from our perspective in terms of job management, like all that we've just been speaking about, HubSpot in particular, like what would we do without it? And ultimately it's the heartbeat, it's the barometer of the business.
Yep.
And I think like, I'm sure we can all agree, like over our time in the industry, like we've seen probably a number of businesses transform with digital adoption in terms of like going cloud-based instead of like on-prem servers, etc. Is there any like specific moments or specific like instances that you can think of where like you've seen a real success story in terms of like somebody taking their business like completely digital, for example?
Yeah, I've seen a business change its name to such and such Compliance Limited on the back of adopting Nimbus, because they really wanted to embrace that sort of digital compliance side of them, of what they do and what Nimbus gave them. And they went on to go and win many, many more contracts because they really lent into the sort of the compliance solution and the transparency and so on. And for them, it really, really worked. And this was quite a long time ago. We're talking about 6-7 years ago, that they lent into it, changed their name, and they skyrocketed. And then they didn't just do it with Nimbus. They then sort of went on to job management systems, and they probably do digital logbooks now. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's a game changer on every level. You can bring up any point. It doesn't matter what it is, and usually there's always a better digital solution for that. Yeah. You know what I mean? There always is. Like, who's putting these sticker dots on detectors still? People are still doing it.
Yeah, I know.
People
Crazy.
are still doing it.
Different coloured dots.
Just like, it's mental. And you see these detectors with all these horrible sticker dots all over it. And what does that even mean? It means you've been to the detector. It doesn't mean you've tested it. Do you know what I mean? But people are still doing it.
Yeah.
And it's like there is a better digital solution, and it means you don't even have to get on your ladders to go and put how long does it take to carry your steps around with you and the smoke pole and then open them up and climb all the way up? You know what I mean? It's just mental.
Crazy.
So,
and in terms of like, so that's a good point that you make. Like, to those people that are potentially listening that are thinking, like, I'm on pen and paper, I'm on the carbon copies, I'm on Excel. Like, what do you think the risk to their business is in terms of not modernising and not moving digital?
I've got this one, absolutely. I mean, they're going to left behind.
Yeah,
they're going to lose jobs because, I mean, great success story of one of the Tio customers. They're actually leading with a digital logbook as a differential. So they're going to companies now. They're not even offering service and maintenance contracts. They're going, oh, guys, did you know, to the end user, that these paper logbooks, there's a digital version by Tio, and it's all these benefits. They're going, this is brilliant. Yeah. Oh, great. What we can do all that. Yeah, great. Oh, by the way, how many have you got service and maintenance contracts? Oh, we have. Yeah. Well, we'll update your Tio logbook and we'll do this. And they're winning contracts off other companies because they're not offering that.
Yeah.
It's not. There's no customer portal. There's nothing. And from an end user perspective, back to your other question, Carl, one of the major benefits we've got, like health. We're doing a case study recently. Got this health and safety manager, and he basically has 4 sites across the UK. And before he implemented a digital solution, once a month he would drive to each site, and it would take him a week. So he'd drive to the site in Scotland, drive to the site in Wales, and he'd do a manual audit of like the logbook, make sure that the guys are doing all the checks they should be, blah blah blah. Now he's implemented the digital solution, we've actually saved him a week of his time, and all the travel, etc., etc. So there's massive benefits to be had.
To the broader point, though, like the companies that don't adopt it, they've still got a bit of time, I think, but not much longer.
No.
Yeah.
And they will just literally fall off the face of the earth if they don't start to get ahead of the curve. Technology gets into every industry, not just the fire industry, it gets into everything. And where is technology not used in every industry now? And once it gets its claws in, typically it just carries and going and carries and going and so on and so on. And the same is true for fire. It's just fire adopted it really late. Security.
We're well behind.
Unfortunately, on the back of issues as well is normally the case.
Well, again, it's crazy, isn't it? But like security is 15 years ahead of fire in terms of its technology.
But they've had apps for intruder alarms. I mean,
you could look on your phone and check your cameras and do all these other things.
I'm watching the gardeners at the minute.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
mental,
digging up the turf.
But life safety, no.
Yeah.
And that's what I talked about loosely and candidly about the dinosaurs. You know, we need to shape things up a little bit, and it will come. But I think it does take some generational changes. And I'm not being disrespectful to everybody, you know, that's sort of governing these things. I know that they work hard and everyone's got the best of intentions.
Yeah.
There's no question on that. Yeah. We've all got the same goal. It's just how quickly can we achieve it? And I think some people see quicker routes to success than others.
Yeah, I think like from a personal experience, I think there's an element of like, depending where they are at different stages in like their business, in terms of like, is it a case of they're coming to the end of their tenure with the business? Is it a case of like there's somebody young and up and coming that's like really looking to take over? And I think that's like one common thing that I find when I speak to people is that you tend to have like one innovator in every business. Yeah. But what I often find is that they're often masked and they're often kind of put in a silo. Whereas actually we need to express that. Like we need to bring those people out.
We need to champion them.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing that like for anybody listening, I would strongly urge you to think about that in a sense that like let those people like almost give them free reign. There's a reason why people are moving digital. Like there's a reason why people are no longer on premise like servers, for example. So
we'll have the same with AI. There'll be AI champions within businesses. They'll be like, I've been looking at this thing. I've been learning about these assistants here, there, and everywhere. And like, we should start to think about bringing in these AI assistants. And if you don't do it, honestly, like a couple of years' time, you'll be so far behind. So it's not just applicable to fire. It's just it's everywhere. You know, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, you've got to have to embrace technology at some point.
No, exactly. If you're a fire and security company and you are coming towards the end of your career with it, you've got to listen to those younger engineers because they're like the youth that are coming through the industry. So
I went and did some training in Ireland a couple of years ago, and this company had bought like 20 plus Nimbus Goes from us. And it was like the training room was like a U-shaped, and typically people sit next to who they like, right? So, on one side it was like the younger guys and stuff, and it kind of like, the further you got around, the older they were. And I was there going, oh, look at this cool new tool, and it's going to show you all these, tips and tricks and so on.
Excitement.
And it's just these guys are sort of on the other side going, oh, I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't need this young gun to come in and tell me how to do my job. And it's like, I'm not coming to tell you how to do your job. I'm actually trying to show you ways that might improve it
the industry's evolving. And I think like it's an area that we've kind of touched on throughout like the entire podcast series. Like the industry, like nobody ever looks at the fire and security industry as a sexy industry. But actually, when you get to like the nuts and bolts of the industry, it can actually be really engaging in a sense of like from our career progression side of things, but also in terms of like the excitement around the industry. Like there's always new and exciting products coming. Like you mentioned on the security side, especially, I love the ability of being able to just flick open the phone and have a look at the house, etc. on the CCTV. And I think fire is massively behind on that. But in sense of like, looking ahead, you mentioned AI. So, like the next 5 to 10 years, like where do you think that leap is going to be in terms of like future technology in the industry?
This is a big subject. It's a big subject.
I don't know.
We have time.
Back in the day, I mean, when me and Pete were selling fire alarms to service providers, you tend to find that we sold more addressable panels. I don't know if your experience. The reason we'd sell more addressable over like conventional was the wiring, because we were selling to like electricians and maybe people that weren't as
I
experienced.
think what it was like if it was over typally 8 zones, like why? What are you even doing?
Well, it was the cabling, if you
It's the
remember,
cabling,
because
yeah,
because
it's
it's
wire
easier to
radials.
wire a loop than it is
Yeah.
to wire radials. So where I'm going with this is,
Wireless.
I think wireless, but that's technology's moved massively, by the way.
Yeah.
But I think more what will happen in 5-10 years time. I can't see a way where you're going to install a conventional system because of the cabling. Copper's expensive. I feel like the components are getting cheaper. So I feel like more addressable systems will be installed. So 5-10 years time, every building might have an addressable system.
Yeah.
And then what comes with that is then you've obviously got
Data.
Nimbus, because you plug your Nimbus in, you're connected onto the cloud, so you've got all the data.
Yeah, well, it's all data, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, that's what drives digital. It's data. You know,
Yeah.
like from your guys' perspective, particularly passive assets. It's typically manually created, isn't it? Like extinguishers, what I refer to as like unintelligent assets, fire doors, and so on.
Yeah.
Emergency lights are going to get smart. They already are, aren't they?
Yeah.
But like extinguishers, there's a guy out in Australia who's created these little ancillary pieces of equipment you attach onto extinguishers.
Yeah.
That can sort of help you measure the gauges and whether they've been tampered with, and a couple of other bits. It's pricey, and obviously we know in the UK, you know, people service extinguishers for peanuts, don't they? So I can't necessarily see the application here in the UK, but he's secured a big project at an airport. But where I was going with that is like he's trying to connect the passive equipment to the cloud because of the data. And you know, it's all data centric, isn't it? And it needs to move, like you're sort of alluding to here, is from conventional to addressable.
Yeah, exactly. So I could see a world where like everything's addressable. It's on the cloud. Engineer tests it. Doesn't even have to get the phone out of the pocket. It just sends the data to the cloud, back to the job management system. You know, done.
Yeah.
Into the logbook. You know, it's completely just everything's automated. You know, that's the future.
And it goes so much further once you start doing that as well. Like I've talked about this with you guys before, but Upticks are like the operating system for the system integrators, right? It's like what manages their business end to end, majority anyway, isn't it? So that's the platform in which they want to sort of manage everything. And they want all the data to feed into it, hence like integrations and so on. Now, I always talk about the first and second wave of the digital transformation. So the first wave is you need software companies to come into the industry. So Uptick, Tio software, and then you get early adoption, and that moves into critical mass, and it just becomes ubiquitous across the industry, and that's great. But whilst that's then happening, the second wave is already starting, and then that's the integration layer to it. So data inherently wants to talk to data, and if you allow it to, then you get fantastic results, right? Yeah. So if you combine the data from Nimbus, Tio, and Uptick, and you can put that all into one common platform where the consumers can access that information, the results are fantastic. But then once you introduce an AI layer to all of that, then all of a sudden that gets scary, though, because you don't need as many staff, basically. You know, it gets a bit scary.
I think you still do need the staff. I think what ends up happening is things just get more efficient. So actually, you don't lose staff; you just have staff doing.
No, do you know what it is?
Doing things that are more important.
Exactly.
I think we can probably all attest to this in terms of like talking about the efficiency. I'm probably sure we all hear it, and you'll meet somebody who's like, "Well, that's my job gone." Like, that's not the reality.
It's not the reality.
Like, the reality is that we're intending to, one, improve the efficiency of the business, and the amount of people that, like, if I like to talk about quoting it as a small example, typically the business that I've been involved in and people that I see, you tend to have like maybe an ex-engineer or somebody that's more of a technical person that is the person that's estimating and doing like the small minor defect quotes in a business, for argument's sake. Now, when I go and speak to people, it's a case of, why would you not empower your administrators and your coordinators that are working closely with your engineers to actually upskill themselves, use a system that is actually providing them the data that they need to do those things? And we refer to it as RGA, revenue generating activity. So we're not replacing a person.
No,
we're just moving them into smarter roles that's actually going to have a better impact for the business. But I mean, I don't know about you guys. I was expecting AI from yourself. In terms of like, so obviously we spoke about the future aspect. What do you think that could like prohibit that from happening?
Oh, good question.
I don't think anything.
No, nor do I.
No?
It's happening regardless.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Do you think it's a case of get on the train or you
basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah, basically. You know,
Question.
you're already
Question.
seeing it. Go on.
How often do you use AI?
Oh, I've started using it quite a bit now. Only
I mean,
recently.
if Billy was here, I'd be saying never.
I use it every day.
Yeah. Well, I used it. I'm going.
I use it every day.
I'm
literally
going.
every day.
I'm going skiing, and obviously I'm a nightmare to pack my luggage.
Well, you
I'm
can't get
ridiculous.
AI to pack your luggage.
No,
for
no,
you.
no. But I didn't. I didn't. But
Give
I
us
got
a
it.
reminder on what to pack.
I got it to do me a list. I was like, AI, do me a list of thingy. Boom, it's great. It's
Yeah.
like, this, it's spot on.
That's the thing. I use it every day, more so for work than personally.
Yeah,
but
correct. Yeah.
It's I just think it's unstoppable train.
Yeah, I think like to give you some examples of where I think it's going to be really powerful in terms of, if I look at it from our perspective, like the ability to just be able to ask a very simple question, drop a website in there, and it scan the website in a matter of seconds and give you all the tangible material that you
Well,
need.
a
It's just
good
so
example is, like when you used to Google a question and then you could go to all those like what I call accordion boxes. So like you could click it and then it drops down and there's a bit more information.
Yeah.
There'd be like 5 or 6, maybe 7 or so like different versions of those answers. And you could click it and you'd have to kind of like summarize your own conclusion from those various different things. But have you seen now at the top of Google, it's got an AI summary?
Yeah.
And you just read that, don't you? Because it's so much better. It's basically summarized all the different answers and it's just coming. There's nothing we can
do you know
about it.
what I just thought about as well is like work-life balance. I think that's so important now. And
Yeah.
since moving into a software role, my work-life balance has completely changed.
Yeah,
Like before,
agreed.
I would be on the road all the time, traveling here, traveling there, and I still do a bit of traveling. Don't get me wrong, but today, for example, I haven't brought my laptop with me, but I can do everything I need to do to run the whole entire business of Tio from my phone.
Yeah.
Crazy, So, and if you're still on spreadsheets and paper, you can't do that. You know, you can't be on holiday or with the family or picking the kids up from school if you've got like a a server-based system or if you're running your business on paper. So moving to tech is going to happen. And one of the biggest benefits, forget efficiency or the rest of it, is probably work-life balance.
Yeah, but
Work anywhere, anytime.
It derives from efficiency, right? So, like, as we become more efficient, and like I say, it's not about us losing jobs. It's about we spend more time doing more qualitative things that humans have to do, essentially. Yeah. And maybe if AI reduces the amount of sort of basic admin and all these types of things, then we do
spend more time with the kids.
We're more
with
efficient
the
and therefore better work-life
with
balance.
the dog on the beach.
Yeah,
You can improve your handicap if you.
If you play golf, you can't improve mine.
I
I'm
need a
rubbish.
lot more time. I mean, Jason's no.
There isn't enough AI in the world to make me to get me to a single ever handicapper.
You just need to replace him fully when it comes to that.
I need to pick a new
You
sport.
need an AI arm.
That's it.
So good.
Yeah.
And in general, so if there's any like advice that you would give to like a growing fire and security business as well, obviously from the years of experience that you've had in the industry, like going from pen and paper, carbon copies, like seeing where the industry has gone, like where would you what advice would you give to those people now?
I'd definitely say like do your research. There's loads of platforms out there, but it's all about take one step back to take 2 or 3 forward.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Don't be scared by it. I think a lot of people are still concerned, I'm worried about it or I don't have the time. It's like if you don't afford it the necessary time, you're never going to move the business forward. And you're never going to get that work-life balance that we mentioned earlier. So I would just say, run with it.
It's a bit cliche at times, isn't it? But we use the old saying, it's you got to have some short-term pain for a
long-term gain.
And I hate saying that.
No,
it's
it's
the
true.
reality.
It's true,
I said earlier, good data in, good data out.
Yeah.
It's like building those asset lists. It takes time.
Yeah.
And you've got to keep them updated and stuff. But if you do it, then you'll get good data out. And then with that good data, you might be able to retain that service contract for another year or two. Correct. Or you may be able to win some more service contracts because you can demonstrate what your differential point. So it takes time, but it's worth doing for the long run.
And life's just easier with tech. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, when's the last time you went into the bank to cash a check? Do you know what I mean? I've got to check the other day. You can scan it. Do you know what I mean? Like when ordering Deliveroo, like life is easier with tech. So if you're running a fire and security business, non-tech, you must just be stressed. You just must be, I can't even imagine it. It's just like, it'll make your life easier. Just do it. Get digital logbooks, get Nimbus connected, get an Uptick platform to run your job management. Like, it will make your life easier. Yeah, it might be pain to begin with, but honestly, it'll just transform.
What's your view on it though? Because obviously he's coming at it from the logbook, I'm coming at it from like the fire alarm aspect, and like yours is quite a bit more holistic, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Well, in a sense of like challenge
Or what
advice to her.
Yeah. So
For me, it is the take a step back. I mean, I meet many directors, owners of businesses, and the reason I made the comment earlier about like the innovator in the business is that you can almost see like people that are on the back of calls that I have, for example, that are just itching to talk and itching to like get their point across. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned, certainly over the last few years, is that essentially as a business owner and director, you may feel like you're making the right decisions from your perspective. Okay, in a sense of, well, we've always done it this way. We'll leave it that way. Why fix something that's not broken? When actually, it's actually the people that are, we call them the champions, the people that are championing the system day in, day out. Like they're the soldiers on the ground, if you like. They're the ones that if you can embrace and take their feedback and opinions on board, you should start to see a natural improvement in the business. And the amount of times where I've actually said to people, like, we might have even almost deal done, and I've said, can we meet your team? Because ultimately, if we start to involve those people in that process, I think that's where you're going to see like much higher adoption rates across the industry.
Sure.
So for me, it would be a case of like taking a step back and kind of looking at through a fresh pair of eyes, fresh lens, if you like, in terms of like the business and the way forward, because the way that you're kind of set in stone at the moment to do is not always the right way.
Well, you said earlier, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But if you do what you always do, you get what you always get.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
It's the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. And in terms of, obviously, for our next guest that's coming on, we have a bit of a tradition where we'd like to see if you'd like to ask a question for the next person coming on.
I'll let you
Jason,
take this one,
I'll let you go first.
Oh, this is good. I do like if you weren't in. I presume it's someone from fire and security. So I would be like, the question would be, if you wasn't in fire and security, what would you be doing instead?
Okay.
For me, I think, I'll answer the question.
What would you be doing?
Formula One driver.
I knew you'd say that.
Formula One driver.
That is a good
I love
job.
go-karting, man. Do you want to go go-karting after?
We're going next Thursday.
I love it. But what a job, just travelling around the world, just driving these ultimate cars, you know.
Drive to Survive really
It's changed it, isn't it?
Like, wow,
it's changed
that's
it.
cool.
Yeah, and look at the tech that they're doing. Do you know what I mean?
exactly.
In order to get
That's all
the
data, isn't it?
ounce of performance, data-driven insights.
I have no idea what my question would be.
Well, same question to you. What would you be doing if you weren't in fire and security, apart from in the villa? Tennis.
Yeah.
Nice.
Love it. Ideally, again, great job. You get to travel.
Yeah.
It's a good lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love tennis. That's what I do.
What about you?
Nice. I'm naturally inquisitive in terms of like the armed forces.
Nice.
So I wouldn't like to have that
I can
lifestyle.
imagine you as a colonel or
Yeah.
sergeant.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like to have the lifestyle for my family personally,
Yeah.
but it's just something that has always intrigued me.
Yeah.
And I would love, like, if I got the opportunity to go and do like a short spell, I would snap that up
Why don't
straight
you-
away.
I'll take it back. I want to be Jeremy Clarkson. That job was the best job. I don't want to be him.
that was the best
but Top
job.
Gear was the best job.
Oh, it's great.
That side, not the farmer.
Yeah, not the farmer. I don't know.
I'll take the farmer.
I'll take the farmer as well.
yeah.
But yeah, that Top Gear job was just the best.
Great.
Wasn't it?
I love Ant Middleton, you know, SS.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Thing is, obviously, he's Australia now, but I'd love to go on there just to see if I could hack it.
Yeah.
I think physically I could, but mentally I don't
Yeah,
know.
the
I'd
mental
like
part
to
of
test myself.
I don't know if we can get you through as the ant and deck of the fire and security industry if that class is celebrity
You
status.
should have said that on a podcast.
I know I should
have said that on a podcast.
That's gonna stick.
with
That's gonna
us.
stick now. Yeah.
So thanks for your time. Obviously, it's been really insightful getting you guys along. Obviously, continue growth for us all, hopefully, and look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.
Good
Cheers,
man.
buddy.
Cheers, bud.
Keep up the good work, mate.
Easy.
Cheers.
Smashing it.